social media piece, we kind of talked about like pros and cons and why it's important and why it's not, and how sometimes people get lost in the social media thing. What's really important that we didn't really talk about is the fact that there are ladders of engagement, right? So everybody's not going to be ready to be in the street with us when things happen. Everybody's not going to be willing to get arrested. Everybody's not going to be willing to put their livelihoods on the line. But social media is a place to start that, and that's really important. So I wanted to touch back on that. On the Ferguson, I got back from Ferguson about a week ago. And it was probably one of the most life-changing experiences that I've had. So when I found out about Mike Brown dying, right, and the reason why I went back to social media is we only knew what was happening in Ferguson because of people who were on the ground tweeting about it, right? Media wasn't telling us what was actually happening. So I found out and immediately wanted to go out there, wasn't able to, and finally was able to go out for the weekend of resistance. And what I saw literally changed my life, right? So we talk about movement work and we talk about being serious about this, and this is our life and this is everything, but we have young people who are literally, I'm gonna watch my language, people who care so much that they don't give a fuck anymore. Right? And there's a difference between you not giving a fuck and you not caring and you caring so much that nothing else could possibly ever matter. So Brother Malcolm talked about lost voices. I met a 15-year-old out there whose name is Loki, who is the most amazing young man I have ever met in my life. Because he's 15 years old, does not care what people have to say about him, and knows what he needs to do. So he slept outside for 31 days, and they were in a tent encampment outside. People hung nooses and they stayed out there still. And for him, in his words, nothing else is more important than him being out there every night for his people, right? Because he cares that much about his people, and that's what we've lost touch of, right? Our humanity. We've been trained through education that we're robots. You learn information, you regurgitate it, you do what I need you to do, and I feel bad sometimes because I'm in a space now where I'm supposed to be sitting in someone's law class, and that's not what's important to me right now. What's important to me right now is being here for my people. And to see a 15-year-old, and I'm 22 now, not that much older than him, but at 15, that wasn't my concern. My concern was, I need to memorize this information for this test. I need to get really good grades. I need to go to college. And we touched on a little bit earlier about the respectability, right? Your respectability will not save you. Okay? Straight hair, but my hair is natural and it's curly and I wear it in a fro. And that's the reality of it, right? And so what's really important is for us to not forget the people who we're fighting for, but more importantly than who we're fighting for is who we should be fighting with. Right? Because we can't speak for people. People have voices, and power is a word that kind of bothers me. I can't give you power. I don't have power to give you. We all inherently have power, and we have to really get serious about that. But going back to the Ferguson piece, what's happening in Ferguson is so very critical and so very important, and I urge everyone to not get comfortable in saying that that's what's happening in Ferguson, because the reality of it is that police are militarized everywhere. Right? UF has grenades that they can buy for 25 cents. Right? Gainesville Police has access to military grade weapons. So the reality is we can say what's happening in Ferguson is happening in Ferguson and we're distanced from it, but we're not. So everyone needs to really get in a position where we're being mindful and aware of that at all times.
Don't go. Everybody say don't go. Don't go.
Next question is, why do you think Mike Brown, why do you think Trayvon, why do we think that Jordan Davis, why do we think that something that happens every day when we hear about selectively, why do some of these deaths go viral and others don't? Like why do we know about Mike Brown as opposed to, not that many people know about Aiyana Jones, who was an 8-year-old that was killed by like a police raid? Why do we know about some and not the others? Or why do you think that?
I think and it kind of touches back to the point of, I mean, certain stories get media coverage. I think there is something to be said about the idea that only black men get killed by police, and I think that has implications of, you know, certain voices being silenced, i.e. women or queer folks or trans folks who are also black and who also experience, if not worse, police brutality in a lot of different ways. So I think in that aspect, voices are not heard. I mean, I'm not a journalist, I'm not a media person, but I think it is about, you know, how do you say it? Sensationalizing certain things. That's the word. And I think it's important in movement work not to exceptionalize, you know, certain people's, you know, Trayvon over any other young black person in a hoodie or Mike Brown over anyone else. But I think, you know, we become attached to narratives and stories and folks. And I think if we remember, you know, that it is, you know, not to romanticize what's happening in Ferguson, right? Because, you know, we went down in Ferguson, but we didn't need to be organizing in Ferguson, right? We need to support folks who got that. Like Phil said, it's a Ferguson. America is Ferguson. And so, you know, we have to locally and statewide organize in a lot of different other places. But I think, yeah, I think we in movement work can't allow ourselves to let the media dictate, you know, or over sensationalize. Dang. Yeah, I'm gonna let somebody else talk, but that's that piece.
Yeah. It's just clear there are certain people that the media cares about and certain people that the media does not care about at all. So it was two women hog-tied together on the side of the road in Tampa or Jacksonville. They were from Tampa and it happened in Jacksonville, or in reverse. Okay. So the article, there are two women, two black women, right, who were brutalized and murdered in a horrendous way and tied to each other on the side of the road. And the reporter couldn't get through the first paragraph before she was bringing up their criminal records, right? What they had done, how they lived. And this reporter who had done such in-depth reporting on their criminal activity or the criminal aspect of their very short lives could only find pictures that were mugshots, right? There was a transgender woman burned alive here, and nobody even batted an eye. So the media, we could just say it, the media chooses for us, right, what stories are going to get traction and what stories are going to make the back page and maybe be a paragraph, right, that people will forget. And that is a very conscientious effort on the part of people who run the media. So we should acknowledge that and know that all lives do matter, right? And so it's up to us to highlight these stories of tragedy and triumph, right? No matter who they are, no matter who they are. But it's very, very intentional. It's very intentional. Fuck, I had another name.
Don't force it.
Yeah, thanks, you. I'm gonna pass it to Shamil. There's one other thing, but I'll pass it. I lost it.
She don't need you.
I think there are multiple layers to this. So one being the media piece. Who controls the media? Who controls what is said, how it's said, how much time is given for it, and the reality is that people of color don't really own that. So when we have these conversations, we need to be talking about what do we need to do so that we can not only control our own narrative, but control how our narrative is put out. And then the other piece that I think is really important is the fact that we've been conditioned to have really, really short attention spans, right? So I live this work, I do it every day, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, and as amazing as these brothers are, I was kind of tuning out. I'm just being honest, right? And so we have these causes of the moment. We get really mad and we flare up and we're upset, and it's a really big thing, and then it dies down and the momentum goes away and people kind of go back to their regular lives. And we hear about something else happening, and I don't know if it's we're too tired or too beat down or too far removed, that it doesn't have as much of an impact anymore.
How about preoccupied?
Preoccupied. That's a really good word. That's a really good word. And I see you here.
Yeah, I keep thinking about the context within which this trouble is festering, which is a long history of police brutality across all ethnic groups or all parts of the society in the United States. And by old, I'm only referring to what little I know about it. I'm sure there's more than that. From direct experience or indirect experience through people that I know, who are 75 years old, 80 years old, grew up in German neighborhoods, or grew up in St. Louis or in Chicago, or in Jewish neighborhoods as well, or who grew up getting beaten up by the police so that they would learn to respect the authority. So this, I see it as part of that more inclusive context that what you were talking about. And so my urgency is how we put these actions into that context, and how we solve that culture of profound disrespect for the people by the state through this police brutality. How do we do that?
Hold on, think about it. We want to stay on the agenda so we can stay on time. And there is an audience discussion portion, so I want you to keep pursuing this question. Are you dying to answer it? Okay. If you want to, we can go ahead and do that. But there are a couple more questions, and then we're going to open it up. You're going to put it? Okay. No? Okay. All right. So the next question, and we're going to wrap it up just so that we can get to the discussion things. There were a couple other ones, but
excuse me. Could I ask everybody if they knew that the city police was more like security guards for the city?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
And it don't have anything to do with the color of the skin, nothing of that. It's got more to do with where you stand, how you're doing it, how you was raised, and your dignity.
Okay.
Would that be a better issue to address upon everything that you're doing out in the world?
There'd be a better time.
I'm gonna tell you that it definitely has something to do with color, but cops are just. We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. Hold on. We're gonna get to it. Just give us a second. So the next question was for the audience. Y'all are exuberant and inspiring Black youth, putting feet to the ground and really dealing in action. So that was like the intro to the question, because it must be said. What is it like, or what have your experiences been like working with some of the older folks? Some of the people that were, no, but you're bad. Folks that were in the movement before, or who have experience from the civil rights movement or an anti-war movement, or just older folks that you come into contact with. Because we had a little bit of something when we occupied the Capitol after the Senate. So there are experiences. Is the torch being passed, or are you taking it forcibly?
There ain't no torch. It's ours. That's another hallmark of things I've seen in Ferguson. I don't want to make over general remarks, but you know, there are folks like John Lewis and other folks who have been very supportive. I had the opportunity to tell John Lewis that I disagree with his perspective, and I disagree with where he was at, and I disagree with his comments about how much progress we've made in this country. And my grade for how he took that was A. He came up to me and said, "That's exactly what I would have told somebody who was like me when I was younger." So John Lewis is cool. John Lewis is cool. Al Sharpton, his time is over. Jesse Jackson, his time is over. The NAACP is on probation. You know, no offense to the college contingent, but you know, those organizations don't really reflect where things are going. I don't know where they be coming from. Al Sharpton is
Just say it, bro.
He's
Just say it.
feds. He's a usurper. I don't really have many positive things to say, but on a generational level, I think there are spaces that older folks have provided great guidance and great tutelage to people, but there is no torch. Young people are not waiting for it. They're not waiting for it to happen, because I think for anyone who is older now, who is a true radical or revolutionary, and if they were really that when they were younger, they would completely understand if we're not waiting on somebody to hand them the torch. So I don't have no beef with older folks. I'm not trying to. We want to build a movement that has an inclusive space, whether it's age or what, because there's experience to be had. But we out here, there's a lot more we got to do. There's a lot more that has to be said, but we're not looking for anybody to say it for us.
Yeah, I think intergenerational work is possible. And I think folks just have to learn, you know, none of this is about you or us, you know, in an egotistical sense, right? I mean, you know, organizations are meant to be built and to die and to be built and to die for the people to operate as the people's struggles go on. And so I think, you know, there's a lot to learn from older folks who have done this, and there's also, you know, I think, which is why I love Kathy Cohen, who was sort of behind the idea of BYP 100. She provided the space and it got out of the way. And we have discussions with Kathy all the time about what we doing, and she respects that and completely disagrees, but you know, also knows this is our time to do that. And it was never no torch, because we've still been burning, and we still burning, and so it's hot, and so we're not waiting to continue to burn until you tell us where the water at, because you ain't figured out either. So you know, you learn how to, you know, plumb a little bit, do some plumbing, but we gotta find the water.
Love it. Love it.
So I had really amazing mentors and mentors, like Dr. Zahar and Mr. Sigmund and Andre Turner. So intergenerational work is really important, right? We can't have a space where we're discussing solutions where everyone isn't a part of it. But what's really important is allowing space for everyone's voices to be heard and uplifted. And I think a lot of the trouble that I've seen between older generations and folks my age who are doing this work is everyone's talking over each other, and everyone's in these separate rooms having these monologues, and there's no actual dialogue. And when you don't have actual dialogue, you have no synthesis of the information, and you can't bring that all together cohesively. So I think that's what's been missing, and that's what's been the problem. But what's also been a problem is the difference between some folks feeling like they've experienced certain things and wanting to theorize the movement instead of actually being the movement anymore. And I think both things are important, but that those monologues happening in two separate rooms is not going to get us where we're trying to go. And dialogue, real dialogue and synthesis is what's going to be important and key.
Yeah, and I also don't want to romanticize like youth all the time, right? Because that too is like a non-for-profit industrial complex. This idea that young people are like, where is that? And I mean, we are, but like, I don't want to also romanticize that. And there does take time to develop analysis, and you know, we could do 1,000 direct actions, 1,000 civil disobedience, and be we young, we could be in the streets, but it is important to have that analysis. But I think it has to be a dialogue. It cannot be, this is what we came up with, go do it, you know. And so yeah, it has to be a dialogue. But I also don't want to just say the youth are always where it's at. But when you look at movements, it does come from, you know. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up the sort of panel-y portion of it. So I want to give a round of applause for Phil. If you don't know what stack is, you raise your hand, you get taken in order.
I'll show you what stack is.